Hi and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Karel van Heulen, Product Manager at Televic Conference, and I'm joined here by Didier Rosé. Today we are incredibly excited to bring you a webinar about our Confidea wireless G4 solution. But before we dive in, just a little housekeeping. First off, let us know if you can see the presentation and if you can hear us. Just give us a quick heads up in the chat on the right side of your screen. Great. Now I'll briefly take you through the interface of our webinar so you'll feel right at home. On the left side, you'll see our presentation. You can use the buttons below to go full screen or to leave the webinar. The sidebar has 4 buttons, and we have a 5th one so we can see the list of participants. You can chat with us and give us feedback with the last button. The questions button is for specific questions, so if you have a question, please type it here. Other participants can always upvote the question and the answers, and this allows us to see what the most important topics are. We'll go through your questions at the end of the presentation. There's also a polls button. From time to time, we may ask you a question and allow you to vote. So that's it. The webinar will take around 1 hour, give or take. Our goal is to give you a short presentation of around 45 minutes, and then we'll take out another 15 minutes to answer your questions. Now, without further ado, I'll turn the presentation over to Didier Rosé.
Hi everyone, welcome. It's nice to see so many of you joining today for the webinar on our high-selling Confidea G4 system. We introduced the solution last year in April, and it's been a tremendous success since its introduction. Today we want to give you a glimpse on what the Confidea range exactly is. Also dive a little bit deeper in the USPs. Show you the products really in a live context with the software and also the hardware components. And then also I will give you a little bit of introduction on the things that we've added in the recent months for this product line. All right, so let's go and have a look at the presentation first. The Confidea, it's really a next generation for meetings and really making those meetings as easy as possible in a context with wireless devices. It is about flexibility that you add to the meetings. Whenever there's a necessity for a multi-purpose room, you just bring in the devices, have your meeting, tear it down easily, store it away for your next occasion. But also, unfortunately, still with COVID rules in place in some countries, social distancing was a big thing. We've seen a lot of city councils, for instance, that moved to a gymnasium to spread out. What is easier than taking a wireless conferencing solution for that? So a lot of occasions where these units really shine. Rental applications, for instance. We have already a couple of rental companies that have invested in the Confidea G4 and are using it in several of their projects. When we developed the system, there were a couple of things that we wanted to achieve. First of all, obviously, it's a wireless solution, so you want to make sure that the connection and the reliability of the connection is really top-notch. Flexibility, we wanted to create a solution that can be used in a lot of occasions, and we'll come back on that with a couple of examples. If we talk about wireless solutions, then obviously also security is a big factor. And there we believe that we also taken a couple of steps forward in terms of security. And obviously no wireless without batteries. Battery management is an important factor, and we have some unique applications in that sense as well. This is an example of a city council in Belgium that is using our G4 system. It's basically a room that is being used for other occasions as well, but they also use it for the city council meetings. As you can see on the table, they nicely fit the environment. The black units on the black tables really give something special, and it is really a nice reference for us. But amongst that, we have many other ones that have been installed and used successfully as well. Let's have a look at the product range itself. What are the components there? First of all, we have the heart of the system, which is the access point. That's the little white box in the middle. Then we have the units, which we call Confidea G4. We already have launched also in 2020 the wired version of that unit, and this is the wireless version. Then we have the batteries, and of course the batteries need to be charged, so you have one rack charging for 10 batteries at the same time. We have recently also added a second access point. So now we have two versions of access points. We have one that has Dante capabilities on board, and we have one without Dante capabilities. We've seen that in quite a bit of occasions, the Dante wasn't really used. And with the current situation also in terms of sourcing and component crisis, we decided to have those double versions. So whenever you don't require Dante, as we also have other options to interface with third-party solutions, please opt for the version without Dante for the time being. Looking a little bit to connectivity, first of all, we have a LAN port which is PoE plus capable. So that means either you have a power injector or you connect the solution to a PoE plus enabled switch. We do also have Plexus ports available, so the device itself is also Plexus ready. And I'll come back on that at the end of the presentation as well. There's also USB. USB can be used for servicing purposes, but also can be used for recording purposes. So there's built-in recording in the access point itself, which is also a unique feature on the market. There's a reset button to go to default settings, just to do a software reset. So that's also available there. Then, depending on the version, obviously the 34 version has Dante on board. The 35 version is the one without Dante, where you don't have that access to that port. And as I mentioned, if you don't require Dante per se, we still have analog in and analog out on the device itself to interface towards third-party audio solutions. The G4 design, we won a couple of design awards with the device. That's a testimony to the work that our engineers have done. It's really appreciated on the market in terms of how the looks are, so modern and contemporary design. Low profile, it's really not that high, so it doesn't scream on a conference table. Nicely fits into the aesthetics of the room. If you would hold a unit, you will also feel that it's really qualitative built. There's a metal structure at the bottom of the unit with a nicely curved design on top of it, and also a stretched touchscreen in the middle with a nice and long microphone button. Also, what we've seen on the market, a lot of conference devices, if people wiggle with their microphone, which we see in the news, they do all the time. If you get angry, they just slap the microphone away. We wanted to build something that is really stable. Although the unit is really compact with all the horsepower that it has, it's still really stable on the conference table. So let me see if I can demonstrate that. So I have the microphone here, simply connect it. You can wiggle the microphone wherever you want. It nicely stays on the table, so no noises from that perspective when you want to do that. So, as I mentioned, we already have a wired and a wireless version. Basically, there's no difference functionality-wise. If you see them side by side, you won't notice any difference. The only difference is at the back of the unit, where you have a cable entry, obviously, for the wired version, and there's a USB-C for the wireless version. So that's the only difference in that respect. I already showed a glimpse of the microphone, so we also have a new microphone, which is called Mic. Last year, we introduced a 40 centimeter version, and that's basically the version that we've been selling all year long. What has changed? So on the stations itself, we have a USB-C connector, and we have a push and lock mechanism now without the need to turn to screw the microphone into the stations. So a lot easier there to set up and dismantle. In tests that we've done with a group of people, it's a reduction of almost 66% for setting up those microphones. But not only on the robustness and the setup time we've worked, there's also higher and more consistent bandwidth, lower equivalent noise, and also the front to back ratio is better in respect to the other microphones. There's also a frequency boost around 4K, and that also helps for increased clarity and also intelligibility. We do have also a couple of newer things that are arriving in the months to come. So this is the 40 centimeter microphone. I already showed how to connect that. So here you have the USB-C connector. On the microphone itself, there's a little button here to release the microphone. So simply align this, click it in, ready to go. Push the button, remove it, right? So very simple. We do also have other types of microphones. So we will have a 30 centimeter microphone, which is a single flex unit here. And then very interesting is also the fact that we will release double flex microphones. So we have a flex part also at the top end, so that the microphone can really be directed to the mouth of the participants. And we have those in 40, a 50 centimeter version as well. And then finally also a 60 centimeter version. Hardly fits my view of my top camera. So that's something that is coming in Q2. All right, let's switch back to the presentation. Battery has a 3000 milliamp hour battery, quite small and compact. It has an autonomy of 11 to 12 hours on a full charge. There's also a push to test button. So if you check the button here or press the button, you get an idea of the remaining capacity of your battery in 5 steps. Charging, we have one new rack space charging tray, which can be also monitored. So there's a LAN connectivity there with the web server, so the charging process can be monitored as well. In terms of charging time, an empty battery in 45 minutes has a charging of 50%, which means that you have yet another 6 hours of meeting time after 45 minutes. A full charge takes about 2 hours in the charging tray. Then we also have a storage case. The storage case is really compact and can store up to 16 stations and the access point. It's basically not a specific case for the wireless, but it's a case for our flex units in general. So whether it's a wired or a wireless, everything is there to store up to 16 units. That doesn't contain the charger. Those are mostly stored in a separate compartment as such. Wireless. Obviously, if you want to set up a wireless, you don't have to worry about what's going on in terms of connectivity. We've done a couple of things there. First of all, the access point supports Wi-Fi 5 standard. Why is this important? The channels that are being used in those Wi-Fi 5 standard, you have more of those channels that can be used by the system. So in order to have perfect harmony and coexistence with other systems, that's really a key factor. Those higher channels in the Wi-Fi band are typically also channels that are not used by other solutions in order to make sure that there is compatibility also with older devices. So for a conference solution, real-time conference solution like ours, this is a perfect spot to operate in. Also, our engineers have worked hard to come up with what we call a clean channel manager, and that's basically the unit constantly scans what's going on in the area. And it will automatically kind of define which channels are the perfect channels to being used by the solution. And whenever there's a channel being used by the system, it will still look if there is interference around. If another access point or device would start to interfere, the self-healing channel switching would kick in and automatically switch to another available channel. And there's also a quite advanced and patent pending error concealing mechanism to keep the signal flow continually going. Also operates in what we call DFS channels. That's a little bit depending from region to region. There are other regulations regarding that, but basically the general idea is that those channels are being used by radars, and you have to scan that frequency for a certain period of time. If it's not occupied, you can use that frequency. Again, very useful for a real-time conference solution like ours to operate in those channels. So that's also supported in the different regional settings. Antenna design. So basically in the access points, there's 5 antennas. 3 of them are being used to send signal into the air. The other ones are for scanning purposes. And then not only in the stations do we have 1 antenna, like most solutions out there, we also have 2 antennas. And that's also very important in terms of antenna diversity. And that's really to mitigate what we call multipath distortion. That's very useful in highly reflective rooms. We have seen rooms in the past, due to the architectural and what is being used in terms of materials, that it was hardly impossible to use a wireless conference solution in those rooms. We've went back to a couple of those rooms with our G4 system, and we can tell you that this was operating really fine now with the adaptations that we've done. So that's also a testimony to the implementations that we've done in the new version. Also, the antennas are positioned in such a way that it creates an omnidirectional radiation pattern where you don't have to worry that much where to position the access point. Obviously, don't hide it away. We've seen that so many times. Don't put it on the rooftop or hide it in a closet. But in general, the position is less critical than it was with older wireless solutions. All that combined, we really believe that this is a very robust, reliable wireless communication and ensures meeting continuity in any occasions. Security. We've all heard about that. Security is also getting more and more important, and there we also wanted to make sure that we have the needed tools to support that. A couple of things here. The stations need to log on to the access point, so they have to be granted access, and that happens in an authentication process. So there's a radio server in the access point that does that authentication. But we also use WPA2 encryption, not the personal grade, but the enterprise grade authentication. What is different there? It's basically each device will individually make a link with the access point, set up a secure tunnel in order to negotiate encryption keys. And basically every device will have its own encryption towards the access point, rather than the personal grade WPA authentication, which uses a system-wide key for all stations. Moreover, whenever a system is restarted, that whole process kicks in again. If a unit would disconnect, you switch it on again, and making the connection to the access point again, it will do that negotiation and get the new encryption keys again. Also, a wireless system is really being used for that easy and quick setup. You want to, in a couple of seconds, let's say, set up a meeting. Really easy. So let's have a look on how we do that. I'll switch back to the top camera here. We have an access point, 3 stations. So basically the units are logged in now. On the access point itself, in the middle, there's also a button here. That button represents a discovery phase. So whenever you want to set up a solution, even without connecting software to it, you can perfectly set it up. You take the access point, position it in your room, switch it on. And then basically, if you have already units connected, if you long press on the button, it will open the authentication process. It will open the discovery process, clear the channel or the devices list, and make sure that the stations reconnect to the access point. So now we see that the stations are making connection to the access point itself. And then in a couple of seconds, they should be connecting to the access point itself. There you go. This one already connects. You see also that it gets the shield here, meaning that the connection is secured. And it starts up the unit and shows the logo that we have put on the station itself. So you can also customize and configure the custom logo whenever that is necessary. So for rental applications, you can do that based on the event, or show it as a logo of a city council, etc., etc. So the units are now all connected. Simply pressing the button again will close the discovery process. And that means now that none of the other devices that you would switch on will be able to connect to the access point. So basically, there's also kind of an open the door and close the door principle on top of the WPA enterprise encryption. So that's it for the setup. So really easy in terms of connectivity. Switching on, starting discovery process, switching on all the stations by pressing on the microphone buttons, and then they will connect to the stations itself. Battery management, also one of the things that is really important here. A couple of things. First of all, I already mentioned that at the back of the station there's a USB-C connector that can be used also to keep the unit alive with a USB-C charger equipment. But moreover, switching back to the stations here, the units, if you look at the bottom side of the units, you see that there are basically two compartments for batteries. If you purchase a unit, it comes standard with one battery included. If you want to increase the autonomy, simply add a second battery and you have an autonomy of 24 hours. But there's more. Let's say you have a meeting and all of a sudden you see that happens all the time, right? That a battery is starting to run low. This one here, you see it only has too little of the lights of the 5 total. Let's say that this one is almost empty. It will be signaled into the software. You will also see an indication on the screen here. But if you have a fully charged battery at hand, no worries, just take the unit, slide in the fully charged battery, remove the empty battery, almost empty battery, and your unit stays connected. So on that note, you also have hot swap capabilities and redundancy in terms of your batteries. Take that battery, put it in the charger. In 45 minutes time, you already have, again, 6 hours of meeting time that can be used. So really handy and unique in the wireless conference industry, the dual battery capabilities. I mentioned flexibility a couple of times also. That's also why the unit is called Confidea Flex. And that's because we created a platform, let's say, where the unit can have different faces. First of all, the big button in the middle here can be configured as a chairperson, as a delegate, where you can also see if the microphone is active or in request mode. And then also with licenses, you can go to a double use of the stations as well, where the microphone will be split in 2 halves. Looking to the stations that I have here, I've configured them now, I reconfigured them. So here we have 3 delegate stations in total. I can show you now to also change one of the units, for instance, to a chairperson. Let me see, I will switch here so you can see. So this is where I can change the unit to a chairperson. Click Edit Seats. And then this, and it's not the correct one, sorry for that. There we go. This one here. Click on chairperson and then I'll switch again. And now you see that the station has received the chairperson functionality. So the button splits in a microphone button and a mute button itself. If you use it in a standalone mode, you can also use the next in line button if you're using request to speak to shuffle through the queuing list as well. There's more. I can also start kind of an initialization, and then the stations will also show here to do an initialization. So you define the order of the stations, which number they get. But at the same time, you can also define the licenses that it has. A couple of things there. We have a voting license, identification to use badges to identify persons. Language selection, that's also something that we've added recently. So that's in order to receive different languages. And then you have the dual use button here, which I will configure one of the stations here. This one has a double station. Automatically, you will also see that it goes to 2 microphone buttons. So that's the second unit, third unit, and I will give them, all of them, also all the licenses here. And then the third one we just configure as a normal delegate station with all the licenses. And then that's it, all done. And we have room layout and also the stations are identified. Let me also show a couple of things in the software here. In the software, in the access point, it comes with a web browser-based software, which is called Confidea. And that's basically everything you need in order to set up and do configuration of your solution. So that means specifically for the wireless, you have a channel manager where you can see the different channels, and it will also tell you which ones to use, not to use. Like you see here, the red ones, those are occupied in our building by other solutions. You can edit here and also say, let's say you're in a building, you know, channel number 60 is being used. You can say, okay, don't bother about that. Never go there. Don't take it into account. So that's also one of the capabilities that we have there. And then you will see that currently the system operates in channel 153. You get an overview of the devices that are being connected. You also have the licenses here. So you see that we have one station here that has the double license, and then all the other ones have the voting identification and languages. You basically purchase the licenses as a pool of devices. That file you upload in the access point, and then you hand off the licenses to the stations. So that means that you could basically also take them away from the station and then apply them to another unit as well. I mentioned also that you can configure the standby screen of the stations as well. So there's a small wizard in order to do that as well. Update of the devices can be done here. So we've done regular software updates that are available on our website in the software page for G4. And then just grab that file, drag and drop it into the updates procedure here. And then it will automatically start the update process. Also has been reduced in terms of time quite a bit. I think previous versions was about half an hour, and now in less than 10 minutes, a complete solution is being updated. Diagnostics also quite important here. I mentioned already the charging time. So you see here the remaining total time, meeting time, which is done in real time. For the different units, you see in which compartments the batteries are connected, and also here you see the percentage that is left. Signal quality, in order, if you would have a unit that is a little bit out of range, you would also kind of see some signal quality drop there. So let's say I will just to show you here again, add a second battery in one of the devices here, and then you'll see that this is also reflected in the monitoring of the stations as well. You can highlight stations in order to see which one is running low, etc. Very handy tool from that perspective. Discussions on the different modes, if you want to use direct access or a queuing list, request to speak, group modes for kind of more automated moderation capabilities. Nothing special there. Audio settings, volume settings of the auxiliaries, auto gain reduction control. And then also the recording here. So you have recording available in the stations itself. And then you see all the files here. We've been using it quite a bit. See also one of our new partners has had that unit for a while, I see. So yeah, recording capabilities both internally, and I didn't mention that, internal storage and also on external thumb drives. So that's all available in the access point itself. Now, if you want to have more moderation capabilities, have a room layout where you nicely see how the stations are positioned, use names for that, program identification badges, and also use those in the stations. That all comes with a paid license, which is called Confidea 360. Basically, you get roles, so you can define different roles here. So you could say, for instance, I want to have an operator that has full control, but the chairperson, he only doesn't have to bother about the recording, audio settings, etc. So you really slim down the interface towards the needs of specific users, and you can also have a password on top of those users. So that's part of 360. Also the creation of a nice synoptic overview where you have a representation of your room, and then you basically position the different units on that synoptic overview or room layout, however you call it. And then you also have both recordings, but also reporting of the meeting. So if votings take place, you have a nice report of who was present, what were the recordings for that meetings, and what were the voting sessions and the results. All right, so I'll switch to the operator role here. This one, for instance, where I can see that synoptic overview. I can control the microphones from here. Let's say that this person is in the queuing list. It will end up here as well. And then you can activate those microphones or remove them from the list. So very easy to manipulate from that perspective. I'll stop the meeting here just to show you also the fact that the stations can be, 1 second here, let me go back. Meeting template, and that's where you can define the names for your participants and also assign cards to it. So basically, if you want to change that, you have either a fixed seat where you say, okay, this person really needs to sit at a certain position. I would say Pierre-Henri here. I will assign seat 1 for him. And then the other ones I can simply, for instance, let me show you here, just slide in a card, remove it, and then automatically the new card is assigned to that station. So you don't need specific reader or writer for the station itself. There you go. So that's how you assign the cards, save the template. Okay, and now if I start a meeting from the local template here, you will see automatically now, if I switch to the camera, I've assigned a fixed seat here for unit number 1. So that means that this person is already known, right? For the single delegate, there's an indication on the stations to guide the persons on what to do. So basically, it tells you to slide in the card here, slide it in, and automatically you're identified and can go into the meeting here. For W's, it's a little bit different. Obviously, you can't put 2 cards in a card slot. And we also wanted to keep the unit as compact as possible. That is why you have a little interface on the double stations with a login button here. So you log in, and then it will give you, again, a nice animation where it says that you have to tap the unit, and then that person is logged in. Same for the person that arrives later and sits at the right-hand side, slide in tap the card and logged in. So the interface really is split in half and can be used by 2 participants without any issues. So now we're logged in. I've started a meeting. So again, you have that control here with the names. But you can also have control over the recording, so you can start or stop a recording from here. Next speaker can also be used on the station itself. But you can also start on the fly voting session. Yes, no, abstain, for instance, secret votes. Oh, sorry, I'll switch to the software again. So you see, yeah. So this is the setting up the voting. Start voting from here, and then automatically also all the stations will go to the voting. Cast your vote. You will also, if you cast your vote, you will feel a little vibration. So that's also something unique on this device, that it gives that haptic feedback whenever you cast your vote. Votes can be registered also on the double-sided units, and then from the interface itself, you can stop the stations or stop the voting from here. And then you get the voting results. There's also a signage application. So if I would log in here as a signage role, this can be shown on the big screen, where you would also have, let's switch here. So this would be then the signage on the big screen, where you would also have an identification of who has voted for what. So individual voting results are also shown from that perspective. And that's also something that we added in the recent software update. Close the voting sessions, etc. So that's all available in what we call the Confidea 360 software. Very easy to set up, web-based. You don't have to install anything on PC. If you want to use another PC or somebody else needs to take the lead in the meeting, perfectly possible to do that and quite easy. All right, and then after the meeting, and maybe we'll also show that. We have now done one meeting here. View the report. You get an overview. What were the names of the recording here? Who was present in the meeting? The voting session that was done with the results, and then the details of who has voted what. You can also do a secret vote, and then obviously we'll only see who has voted, but not the individual votes itself. All right, let's move on. Couple of things almost there. I already mentioned language distribution. There's a license for that. So that's been added in one of the recent firmware and software updates. So basically, how does that work? You have an interpretation solution with our Lingua interpreter desks on the Plixus network. And basically, in order to get those channels to the wireless solution, use an access point with Dante, and we highly reserve those for those applications that do require interpretation. Route your channels and do that from the software interface. And then basically the audio channels that are being routed or sent to the stations, you can go up to 7 languages, so 7 languages plus floor in total, which are fixed routed from the station to the access point. So let me show you here for a second. So this is the interpretation configuration, where you basically say this Dante channel has English, and then you can also decide how to show it on the stations itself. Save the configuration, and then you have your routing available, where you can also show it on the stations itself. So here you have a little channel selection where you can scroll through the channels. Obviously, I've only configured 2 now, so floor and English are available there. Also in the wireless double setup, you have basically 2 channel selections with individual headphones that can be used to listen to 2 languages as well. So fully flexible in that sense. Also, in everything that has to do with IT and how to integrate the solution into customers' IT networks, we've done a couple of things there. First of all, we do have added a secure REST API, and that's basically the version that we have available. I see that a couple of slides are not shown here. Let me quickly try to intervene. Let me see, I didn't think they were not transferred to the PC here. But anyways, I can show you in a live context as well. Just go to the software and show it a little bit from that side. There you go. All right, so going to settings here. We have added in support for NTP server. So basically you can synchronize your system clock with an NTP server. And typically if you would push the date and time from your PC to the solution, over time the clock would start to drift a little bit, which is quite normal. So now with that NTP support, you can keep the clock in sync so that the time on the units is always correct as well. As I mentioned, in terms of network, we've added DHCP support now for both the wireless and the wired. There's 802.1x authentication, and that's basically telling the device it's a network authentication protocol, where an IT department can say, okay, only if a device has a certain certificate or needs to identify itself to the network before it gets access on the network. So that has been added as well. There's a couple of authentication types that can be used here, where TLS is the highest form of security, where you have certificates and keys as well that need to be applied in order for the device to have access to the corporate network. Being asked more and more, so we comply to that as I believe the only conference manufacturer at this point in time. What else? The API here. API is also HTTPS. It's a secure API where you can also have certificates and access tokens in order to communicate with the API. And in the access point itself, let me see here, there's a Swagger where you see the complete kind of description of the API and also the capabilities of what it can do in order to do integrations from there. So a little explanation on how it works, and then also all the events that are available. Currently, it's about discussion control, but also delegate management, voting, getting voting results, etc. So also this is added in recent versions as well. So that's, I had a couple of slides of that, but now I could show it in real life, right? Okay, also something that is upcoming, don't have it right now, but it's coming in the Q2 of this year, is basically the connectivity between a wired solution and a wireless solution. So how does that work? Basically, it's connecting the access point to a Plixis engine. I already mentioned that the access point was Plixis ready. As soon as that version comes available, you'll have the capability to directly connect it to the Plixis network and have one solution, one control interface from Confidea 360 to manipulate both wired and wireless units in one room. And then in the second phase, we'll also have the capability to transfer the languages interpreter channels from the Plixis to the wireless automatically without Dante support needed. So available in Q2. That's the end of my presentation. I hope it was really interesting. You got a lot of insights on what the solution can do, also from a hardware perspective, but also a software perspective, and also give you a little bit of glimpse on what is coming in terms of new microphone capabilities, but also integration in IT networks, and then the upcoming version, which will support wired and wireless combination, which is again something that is unique on the market, and that really sets us apart from competition in that sense. Okay. Floor is open for questions, I think. Karel?
Yeah, thanks Didier for this nice and comprehensive presentation. There are quite a few questions, so we might not be able to answer all of them in the next 10 minutes, but anyhow, we'll try to answer them in the question bar here. First question is about the physical connectors, the analog in-out on the access points. Does it have locking connectors?
It's Phoenix connectors, so the typical block connectors that are being used in a lot of AV equipment. But there's no locking mechanism per se. It's quite sturdy connection from that perspective.
Yes, indeed. Then a question about the WAP with Dante and without Dante. Is it possible to upgrade the non-Dante WAP version to Dante later on if needed?
No, it's a specific hardware. So it's really a specific chip that controls the Dante that is either on the board or not possible or not stuffed on the board. There's also a different price point of those two access points.
A question about the USB-C connector. What is it for? So I guess it's here about the back of the unit.
Yeah, so let me go here. So the back of the station, you have an USB-C connector available. So let's say your battery runs low. You don't have a fully charged battery at hand. You still have a backup solution. Just grab USB-C connector, slide it in, and it will keep the unit alive. You can even remove the batteries. So I will do that now. So remove the two batteries that are in the compartment here, and the unit is still alive, right? So it keeps the unit alive, and you can already start the charging process of your batteries if needed.
Yep. Can we increase the coverage area of the antennas by cascading more than one access point?
So currently, the access point is a standalone mode. I didn't mention the range of the access point is approximately 40 meters. So that's like
that's another question that will come.
So that's already an answer to another question. And also, currently, only one access point possible. I mentioned the coupling to the Plexus system. As soon as we have that available, we will also do an upgrade in order to have the possibility to cascade multiple access points. But in general, I think most projects that we've done so far, range is definitely not an issue. The maximum number of stations that can be connected to an access point is 128 units total. For those occasions where you would have more, then you would obviously need that cascading, which will become available later this year.
Okay, thanks. Aside from the 16 case units, do you have a customized case for demonstration purposes?
Yeah, good question. Actually, we do have demo cases. The demo cases, that's actually a demo case that I'm using right now. Demo case has an access point, 3 stations, 4 batteries, so you can show the hot swap capabilities, and then the microphones, and then everything you need to charge the batteries and the cables to basically show a complete setup like I've done here. So that's available on a price list with a special price, as we want to support our customers also to show the solution to the customer base. Seeing is believing. That's definitely something that we are strong believers from, and that's also why we created that demo case.
Okay. Can we attach an external or directional antenna to the access point?
No, the access point has internal antennas. We've designed it in such a way that we have everything under control and that we know what's going on. So also has quite a big range. So we opted not to have external antennas on the access point and on the system.
Are we able to assign microphone stations to more than one access point at the same time?
Can you repeat?
So the question is more, so you say, can we assign one delegate unit to more than one access point at the same time?
At the same time, no. Obviously, yes. You can switch from room to room, where you say, okay, we don't use it in this room now. I will clear the unit list and then take the unit to another room and then assign it to that room. Being connected to both the access points itself is not possible.
Okay, so then a question about the logo. So the image file, is the image file adapted for the logo, or do you have to adhere to a defined image size?
I would say a little bit both. It's defined, the resolution is defined, so you can upload a picture and then you can, let's say, navigate in the picture from the user interface point of view.
Yeah, you can indeed always change. You don't have to put in a specific image size. Then a question about the discovery mode. So is there a way to lock the discovery mode or discovery button? We do not want anybody to push that button during a meeting.
Yeah, that's a good question. We already got that remark. It's listed. Currently, it's not implemented yet, but I believe that could be something that we add in a future update. It's a relevant point. In a lot of cases, obviously, the access point is somewhere up high, but also for that really easy setup where you just drag in the stations, put it on a table, and then set up your system. It's indeed a good topic. I have to say, and that's a good point, when the solution is up and running and somebody would press the button, just short press on the button, it will open the discovery, but it will not do anything on the unit configuration that is in place already. The only thing that if somebody would take a unit at that point in time and activate it, it will probably also get access to or authenticated to the access point. So, yeah. But it's a good relevant point.
Yeah, indeed. Another question, can we switch on and synchronize all microphone units at the same time, or does it have to be done one by one?
So basically, if you open the discovery process and you just switch on all the units, it will do that automatically all in one. So you don't have to take care about doing one and then making sure that the connection is established and then go to the next one. Just switch on all the units, press the discovery button, and then all will log on to the access point at once.
Okay, then let's see for the next question. Yeah, that's a good remark. And are the licenses inside each Flex unit, or is it in a pool of the complete system, which can be much better?
Yeah, so it's basically you get a file. Let's say you purchase 30 licenses. You get the license file, you upload it into the access point, and then from the access point in the software or the logon procedure that I showed on the Flex screen, you assign the licenses to the stations itself. So you basically hand them off to the station. If you don't need it anymore, you can take it away, and it will be added to the pool again, so that you can assign it to a different unit.
Yes. Okay. Then, yeah, we already answered on how many units per access point?
128.
Yes. Then the next one has also been answered. What's the coverage of the access points? It's
40 meters.
Okay. And then the language menu. Could it be changed in other languages? How many languages are available? And is there the Italian language?
Yes. I'll show you. So there again, here you have the software. Let's go to this one here, operator, language. Oh, Yeah, there you go. Those are all the languages that we support. So ranging from Dutch, German, Japanese. Where is the Italian? It has to be here. It has to be here. Where is the Italian? Well, I believe Italian was there. I'll have to check that. That's really strange.
And if it's
not,
there,
we can definitely
we can
add it. It's not a
always add
big
it,
deal
yes.
to add the languages after all. Here it is, Italian. There we go.
Okay. Thanks. And then a question 2 times, 1 time in German and 1 time in English. I'll go for the English one. Can you integrate a camera into the software so that it automatically moves to the individual positions? I guess it's about the camera protocol if it's inside this.
Yeah, so as all our systems, also our Plexus range, our Discerner entry-level range, and also the G4, we have capabilities to integrate with camera tracking solutions. So there's microphone activity that is being sent on a protocol or through the API. You can use that information to go to your camera tracking solution. It also operates with our out-of-the-box TCAM solution, which is our own camera tracking solution that we have available in our portfolio.
Yes. Then can you also, then it's about Confidea 360, can you also vote anonymously? So
yeah, secret vote is also one of the configuration. I haven't demonstrated it now. It was a public vote that I demonstrated, but you can perfectly also do a private vote. And then in the reporting, you will only see who has voted, but not exactly what they have voted.
Yes. Then is it possible to route language channel audio into the access point from a third-party interpreter system?
Yeah, so as long as you inject the channels of the Dante interface, it doesn't basically have to be a Televic system if there is already an existing interpreter solution, or it could be a software solution. As long as you get the channels on the Dante interface and route it, then you can perfectly use it that way.
Okay. Then a question about the authentication. Can the authentication be overwritten in case where somebody needs access, forgotten password or lost key card or something like this? I don't know if it's about the unit itself or it's about the interface.
There's definitely password reset available for the user level. If it's in terms of stations, you can also configure, let's say that somebody forgot his card, put him fixed on a seat. So that's perfectly to configure from the software perspective. Or if you have empty cards, as you have seen, it's really easy. Just go to the name of that person, slide the card in the unit, and you have a new card assigned for him that you can use for the meeting.
Okay, okay, that's about that question. Then about the mic. Are we going to see the mic type of gooseneck microphones on also the regular wired flex units in the future?
In the future, yes. I will not put any timing on that. We're currently also ramping up with the whole kind of component and supply chain crisis. We will do that, but no timing guaranteed yet.
Okay. And then we're almost through the list. Can we integrate the system to Zoom or Google Meet?
Yeah, sure. Basically, all the applications that we have can be connected to a USB interface and then go to Teams Zoom calls. Actually, during COVID times, that also was one of the reasons why our solutions were that popular and that we sold many of them in those occasions where it needed to be coupled to a soft codec in order to have hybrid meetings.
Okay, so I think this is about the last question. If not, please ask your question still. Otherwise, I would like to thank you.
All right, perfect. Good questions. Obviously, if you would have additional questions or you want to talk about projects, don't hesitate to contact us, either your local sales representative, or you can also contact conference@televic.com, and then your questions will be transferred to the right persons. Also, make sure if you want to stay up to date with all the recent news, see projects that we've done, product news, other things around the company, make sure to follow our socials on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So we post quite a bit there with interesting ins and outs and things that might be interesting for your sales process as well. So I would like to thank you for your time. I hope it was valuable, and hope to see you on one of these occasions, maybe in Barcelona in May or some other occasion. For now, have a good day and stay safe. Bye.